Welcome to this episode of Real Voices of Happy Valley, where we don't stalk him, we talk to Steve Hindle, who's involved with the Bridestones Moor community project.
Yes, Bridestones are an amazing set of rocks on the moor above Todmorden. Definitely worth a visit. Weird set of old rocks that look vaguely like people's heads.
Yeah.
And have names like bride and groom and things like that.
And so, quirky, unusual, important that Ted Hughes wrote a poem about them, calling them a black exclamation mark
Yes,
in his usual cheery way.
Yes. The community group want to return the moor to its ancient state and reintroduce all kinds of extinct, locally at least, extinct plant life.
The group trying to buy Bridestones and return it to its original state include people with interests and skills in birds, plants, badgers, graphic design, natural photography, as well as IT, spreadsheets and fundraising.
Yes, and we spoke to one of them, Steve Hindle, who specialises in fungi.
Yes, he's a mushroom man. Yes. Fun guy to be with.
Oh, Bev.
Oh, sorry.
He works for the National Trust, locally and nationally, as we'll find out. We are sitting in a lovely house in Sowerby. Are we in Sowerby? Sorby. Yeah. Sorry, I've been told off for that before. with Steve Hindle, who's involved in Bridestones Rewilded, which is looking at the area around Bridestones boulders up on the moors above Todmorden and Eastwood, roughly. So I've got a leaflet here in front of me called Bridestones Rewilded, Our Vision. But I haven't got my glasses with me, so you're going to have to tell me what it says. So what, Steve, is the vision?
Well, the vision is that we try and purchase Bridestones Moor and then restore it to the kind of habitat that it effectively would have been prior to it being used for agricultural purposes, which in this area is grazing.
Mm-hmm. So who owns it then? Who'd you buy it from?
A farmer.
Just an individual farmer.
Yeah, yeah. We've actually been dealing with the agent. Yeah, so basically the moor, well, you can imagine people living up there a few hundred years ago, desperately trying to eke out a living and needing to graze whatever animals they were grazing, cattle, sheep maybe up there. In order to get the grass growing, they cut channels into the moor, drained off some of the water so they could change the plants that were growing there. Mm-hmm. That meant that they could raise a few more animals on the site, and that might have meant the difference between life and death for them, but it also had a negative impact on the ecology of the site and its capacity for holding water and storing carbon and all of these other ecosystem services. So that's been going on for however many 100 years, 300 years or whatever. And we want to reverse that because now we understand the value that the moors bring to us other than their grazing value, So we want to take that back. And in doing that, then we will be providing habitat for many different species which need good functioning moors. And blanket bog, that's the important thing, really.
So we're talking species of insects, birds, animals?
Yes. So obviously any kind of ecosystem supports a whole range of different species.
Yeah.
And my area of interest is plants and fungi. So I work for the National Trust currently, and I'm the Ancient Grassland Officer. And so my focus there is on grassland plants and fungi. When it comes to the moorland, we'll be looking at redressing the hydrology and bringing back some of the plants that should be there, and those plants and the habitat will then lend itself to various species of insect and birds and mammals.
So the aim is to increase the diversity of plants.
It is, but so you could increase the diversity by completely changing the habitat to something it's not supposed to be. So it's not just about diversity. Diversity is part of it. It's about restoring the functioning of that ecosystem, of that habitat. So, hopefully we know how important the moors are. And Calderdale, maybe up to a third of Calderdale is moor top, basically. And a lot of that is in degraded condition. And that, I can't remember the details, but moorland comprises a very small amount of the Earth's surface, but it holds more carbon than all the world's forests.
What?
Really?
Yeah, it is an incredible amount of carbon that it's holding. But they're in a really degraded state. And, work's been done all over the country to restore moorlands, peatlands, blanket bog. And we just want to do that work here on a piece of land which is, iconic for anybody who knows Bridestones. It's an amazing site. So we want to keep that for the people, keep the open access so people can visit that and do all the things they've always been doing there, but also restore that habitat.
Right.
So you're not losing the public access in order to do that. That's a really good thing to hear.
Yeah, well, I think that's really important. And obviously, if we said, right, we're gonna buy this place, we're gonna fence it off, and it's all going to be about nature, then people would not be happy.
No.
And understandably so, because this is an amazing place, and it's been amazing people for thousands of years. There's a lot of folklore about this site, and it's really important that people have access to it and can experience it.
Yes, I was going to ask you about the folklore, but first let's go back a bit. The hydrology, the water retention. Obviously, flooding is a big issue up and down this valley, and water retention up on the moors is a major part of that.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it presumably fits with the sort of flood defence, various flood defence strategies as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so important. In this area where we live, we've got these moorlands which are massive and flat, basically, and then these very, from a landmass perspective, very small valleys dotted around these moors, and we get a lot of rain.
I've noticed that.
We get a lot of rain here. So really, all that rain that's coming down should be sitting on the moor, and then you've got plants like sphagnum, which is like a sponge, the moss, which will hold lots and lots of water and expand and hold all that water. And so that should be happening during the rainy part of the year, which you would think could be like maybe the winter, but actually seems to be the whole of the year. But during the rainy part of the year, all that water should be held on the moor, and then throughout the rest of the year, it should be slowly percolating through, running down, which is great for our grasslands because it means that they remain hydrated. And that means that we are one of the most important places in the world for a particular kind of fungi which are threatened globally with extinction. But our moorlands help them to survive. So that's a really important thing, which is what I'm focused on in my work. Nothing to do with Bridestones. So if you look at Bridestones, you can see, if you look at the stones themselves, you can see the way that they cut in towards the base, and they all do this. And I think, and this may not be true, some scientists may tell me this is wrong, but I believe that is the level that the peat used to be at, because peat is very acidic, and our stone is quite subject to acid. It's fairly soft stone, really. So I think that's where the acid from the peat has etched into the stone,
That's
put
interesting.
It away. Yeah. And so what that tells you, and we know from doing core sampling with a peat depth measurer, that around the stones was blanket bog. So that would have just been, if you'd have walked on it, you would have been wobbling around on top of a big kind of layer of water, effectively. Now it's dry as a bone there now around those stones, and there's no way that we can change the hydrology back to what it would have been around those stones, because we would need to be working much further down the valley, building up, stopping that water from moving down. The work that we can do has to be focused behind the stones, in between the stones and the road, as far as the blanket bog restoration goes. But there, it's relatively flat, but there's very, very definite gullies being cut into that. So by blocking up those gullies, we can hold that water onto the site.
Right.
I used to know quite an old lady at the time, and she said her mum used to make nappies out of sphagnum moss for her baby brother because it was so retentive. And I thought, she's making that up.
I've never heard that before.
But no, she said it. They
makes
used to
perfect
go
sense.
And collect it, and that's what she'd use it for.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's just an example of the things that just don't occur, but now. But I don't know how rare, it was probably quite common in many places a long time ago.
Absolutely. This is the thing that there are so many kind of plants which we would have used as resources. I mean, an important one for me is bracken. So bracken can be very problematic, and it's taken over lots of areas, lots of our valley sides. But it used to be collected for animal bedding. But, now it's much cheaper to just get straw in than it is to collect bracken. That's obviously hard work. And people used to keep more horses and cattle on those slopes, and they would break it down when they were moving around. Now we have a lot of sheep, and they don't have as much of an impact. And so just changes in the way that we live and changes in the way that we farm lead to these changes in our ecology, effectively.
But we used to live economically more in tune with what was around us.
Absolutely.
And less demanding of money, or money demanding less of us. Well, and that's one of the big changes, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess with industrialisation, now it's much cheaper, isn't it, to get some straw from the other side of the country than it is to go out and do the work to collect the bracken. And that's the same with so many things. It's cheaper to buy flagstones in India than it is from a quarry in Todmorden.
Yes.
Yeah, that's...
which is crazy, really.
It is utter madness. So, have you got people involved? Are there lots of volunteers?
Well, so we're still in the early stages. So at the moment, we're raising funds to buy the site. So there's nothing, it's not ours. We can't do anything there. So although we've been there and we've done some survey work, we've not got anything for people to do. So there's 6 of us involved in the group that wants to buy it, and so we're very, very busy. And then we've got the website bridestones.love, and a lot of people there have contacted us and said that they would like to volunteer. So we've kind of got a list of volunteers. And I guess at the moment, if those volunteers want to do something, it's really about spreading the word, telling their friends, asking people to donate a bit of cash. And the more people who pledge some money, the better it is for us to get funding, because funders are looking for that community interest. So if we've got 1,000 people all giving us £1, that's better than 10 people giving us £100 each.
Yeah, not that you're going to turn down £100.
Certainly not going to turn down £100. No.
So how far are you into the process of buying it? Does it look good? Does it look likely?
Yes. So, this isn't really my area, but we've raised I think it's about 48,000 on the crowdfunder website, and we've had various donations, direct. So we've got, 50, 60,000, and we've done some. We did an event at the Golden Lion and had some merchandise, some T-shirts, and so we've had kind of money coming in from that kind of stuff, and so that's brought a bit in. So we've got some money towards the purchase price, and then in order to do any work, we need a whole load more. But we're looking at various kind of funding streams, grants, loans. There was a grant that we were going to go for, but because of the election, that's been put on hold.
Yeah.
Right,
and so we've got to wait a little bit. But there's a few funds out there, which will either fund community buyout or ecological work, and so we're looking at those. We've been offered a philanthropic loan, so we can take that. Obviously, if we take a loan, we've got to pay back the loan. So we've got to generate some.
I suppose it means it gives you extra time to do the fundraising to pay that off.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. And we can raise money doing ecological restoration work, but we really need to raise as much as we can so that we've got as much money as possible and as much as we need to be able to do the work that we want to do on the site. Doing the ecological work, that's a lot. And then just things like maintaining fences, public access. If we want to make the site more accessible, for disabled people or whatever, then we've got to look at what's involved in that, and that could be quite expensive.
Yeah,
there may be some funding for that specifically, but it's going to cost us a lot of money, basically, whatever we decide to do. So the volunteer help is going to be amazing and absolutely necessary, and that might involve a lot of planting, I guess, planting sphagnum, cotton grasses, other bog plants. And I would like us to, we've lost, I'm the plant recorder for Calderdale as one of my other hats, and we've got the kind of history of plants in Calderdale going back to 1760 or something,
right?
And a number of plants have locally become extinct. They're still found in other places, but we don't have them anymore. And a lot of those plants are bog plants. There's a lot of bog plants, and then there's a lot of plants of wet habitats, wet grasslands, wet woodland. And because the way our water's been working, and the water flow's changed, we've lost a lot of those species. And so I'd like to reintroduce some of those lost species to the site, because if we can, get those conditions back to what they were like before, then the species that were there before should be happy enough.
Yes, okay. It obviously fits with your job.
It does fit with my job,
very much. And is that working for the National Trust, you say?
Yeah.
So is that a national job, or is it?
So I work for West Yorkshire. So I'm based at Hardcastle Crags, and my focus is on grasslands in Calderdale. I've got a wider remit of the South Pennines, but I kind of focus on Calderdale. But because my job is also very specialist, I do work all over the north of England.
So places where there's extinct grasses and things are thriving, you'd have contacts to be able to get them and bring them back if the conditions are right.
I do have those contacts. And I'm also involved in a project in Calderdale to restore a lot of grassland species. So sites which are good, which are diverse, which have got a lot of species there. The landowners are happy for me to collect seeds and then grow on plug plants and put those into sites which have maybe gone through a period of poor management, but now we're in good management, and those species would thrive. And so they just need to be reintroduced because of the Industrial Revolution and acid rain and what have you. A lot of the species which were here were basically, the conditions became too acidic. I think the moors got to the acidity level of lemon juice about
really?
a pH of 3 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So really, really, extreme. And so that seed bed basically is just gone.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to be able to reintroduce locally sourced species, from one field to another neighbouring field, because actually the time it would take for that species to travel of its own accord is hundreds of years. So give it a little helping hand, because we gave it a hand to go extinct in the first place.
That seems reasonable. Bit of recompense going on there. And I mean, you're obviously quite specialist, as you say. I mean, the other people, they have their own sort of specialist interests.
Between us all, we've got this kind of interest in nature and a variety of skills to be able to realise this project.
Okay, well, that's really interesting.
Yeah, thanks for that, Steve.
Unless you've got anything else to add.
So we want to educate people about habitat, about carbon, about water, but also about the natural history, the species that are living there. And we want to engage people with nature. So, for example, we've been up there doing surveys, and that catches those people who are visiting already. But there's a whole load of people in our community, and we live in this amazing place, stunning views and everything. But there's a lot of people that don't really get involved or get out into the countryside. And we really want to encourage people to come out and see what's there. We want everybody to come, but one at a time.
Yes.
So presumably, if you've got a social media presence or whatever, you can let people know when they are welcome to come and talk to you about it and have a look around.
And there'll be information on the website.
Thanks a lot. Fascinating. Yet another really interesting person from the Calder Valley.
Yes, I know. For more information about Bridestones and this amazing group of people, you can go onto their website, which is bridestones.love.
And the Facebook page is Bridestones Moor community page.
Right.
So, more power to their elbow, as they say.